Are we
All right, we're
are we
live.
live here? I saw.
We are live.
Okay, fantastic. Hi everyone. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. And very nice to be here alongside some fantastic panelists on an exciting topic, building the future of the digital economy. The digitizations across the economy that we're seeing today are really changing the world we live in, and the shape of the future. There's a ton of benefit creation and efficiencies across the value chain. We're seeing new policies across legal security, financial services, and really a shifting world and economy that's been expedited over the past few years. I'm fortunate to have some amazing panelists, by my side here, experts from the metaverse, from traditional gaming, from token economics, and overall in the blockchain space. So, I'm excited to dive into some questions, help kind of shape the thoughts and their views on really what's needed around building the future economy, what each of them are focused on and doing in a broader context within their specific companies, and then having some general conversation around how we all view what's happening in the world, where we think the opportunities lie. So without further ado, maybe we'll start with Eloisa. I'd love for you to give an introduction, share a little bit about your background, and we'll go from there.
Since 2017, also due to my pretty young age. I'm right now 24, and I've been focusing on token economics since the beginning. Actually, at first, when just any token would have a great market fit, I was a bit worried that nobody was caring too much about token economics. But I've been so surprised to have received the attention of VCs, funds, accelerators, looking for me as a partner for tokenomics of their portfolio companies. What I focus on is getting through discovery, design, integrating it for business consulting. So that's what's out there, and also a little bit less. It's my passion and my end to make Web3 and the metaverse not just words but a reality. Yeah.
Fantastic. Ali, how about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ali Madhavji here, managing partner at Blockchain Founders Fund. So we invest in and help venture build top-tier startups. We've now got over 100 portfolio companies in the Web3 space, ranging from everything from DeFi, derivatives, gaming, to companies that service the industry like white label credit cards, all the way to companies that leverage and use blockchain technology at the core of solving real-world problems. This could be in music tech, ag tech, ed tech, and all sorts of other sectors. Apart from that, I'm a senior blockchain fellow at INSEAD. So we've put together a lot of really cool things from an academic perspective as well in the blockchain space. For example, we wrote the first case study in history on finance with CZ, and something similar with SoRare as well, and many others. And also serve on the board of a couple of public companies in the blockchain space as well.
Awesome. Raj?
Yeah. So we started our journey back in 2020, especially focusing on the sports metaverse and bringing the professional athletes from NBA, NFL, even MLB, meaning baseball, basketball, soccer, and all those genres. And then we strategically formed a partnership with NBA Player Association, and obviously we are building our metaverse with those athletes. With gaming as one of the engagement model, but really talking about the future digital economies, combining the real world, especially with all the celebrity brands, and bringing them into Web3 digital space through our metaverse engagement model that we have created.
Awesome. So Raj, why don't you expand on that a little bit further? The future digital economy can entail a lot of things, as I mentioned briefly when I started this. Can you describe a little bit about what the future digital economy means to you, what that entails, a broad context?
Yeah. So in our view, right, and obviously we are a community first platform, right? So what we do is we gather a lot of feedback from all the sports fanatics, right? Whether you are a basketball fan, football fan, soccer fan, doesn't matter. But we take all the sports fanatics input and we really ask them, okay, where do you see from your engagement perspective? So obviously the sports fanatics have a large disposable income in the current economy, call it as Web2 economy. Where they buy trading cards, they buy the merchandises, they attend events, they also attend entertainment venues, especially if you look at the Los Angeles Lakers where we are based, and many of those arenas. And when we talk to them, they really want to replicate that deep engagement into the Web3 space now. So what we, and not only we as a company, but what we are looking as a demand, from a demand perspective, is that really these people are hungry into not only NFT is just one of the minor engagement point, but they are looking at, okay, how most of the celebrity brands have invested in 20, 30, 50 different companies. They may be a sports brand, whether they're a clothing line, shoe line, they have event venues, they have even the energy drinks, right? So you take all those merchandises and how can you monetize in the Web3 space? And that's what we believe that the conversion of this Web2 and Web3 is truly the future of digital economy. And especially with our focus is obviously very centric towards the sports. And that's where we see there's a tremendous opportunity for many companies, not just us as an individual or as a company, but many companies who wants to deep dive into this space. There is this tremendous vacuum or the gap that we truly believe that can be addressed by many of the startups and we are one of the early stage startups.
Awesome. And I think because of your traditional background, having led technology and gaming teams from Warner Brothers to Riot, that you have a great position to help further answer, like maybe specifically to the gaming sector, how does economics and how does the digital economy play in? What does that mean for you as a developer and for the broader gaming industry? What do they need to incorporate to account for the future of transactions and the way people will interact and play with games in general?
Yeah. So yeah, that's correct. So if you look at what many of the large gaming corporations doing, right? Whether it's Riot, Warner, Activision, Blizzard, you name all those top companies, right? They have a tremendous loyalty with the gamers, and the gaming communities are highly engaged with the Call of Duty product or Fortnite or whatever the engaged product it is. And what we are seeing right now as a gamer and coming from a gaming background, play to earn model is obviously a well-defined model, as we know. But there is also learn to earn model, and there's also, we are calling it as own to earn model, right? Where you're owning an asset, or whether it is your avatar that you have won by playing X number of games, that ownership can lead into renting that avatar. So if, let's say, in a League of Legends, you were playing League of Legends game, you spend 2,000 hours, you want certain ammunition, certain RP points, certain rewards. Imagine you can now rent that model or give that model back to the community. So ownership and giving back to the community is also known as own to earn model. And I'm sure there are a lot of phrases like that. But those are the engagement we are seeing from the gaming side. People wants to play games, people wants to earn it, people wants to own it, and then they want to just rent it out. They want to give it back to the community for a specific reward. And that's what many of the gaming companies are looking at, obviously, right now. But obviously, that's what we would focus on too.
Awesome. Eloisa, considering your expertise with tokenomics, do you have anything to add from the perspective of how these economies will be priced, and some of those models like play to earn and own to earn that Raj commented on?
Yes, of course. I'm actually getting a lot of deal flow from that specific sector of crypto. And I am finding that the gaming world, much like crypto started at events like Sigma, is now shaping the future metaverse communities and is now really testing all of the mechanisms like a virtual identity, which in the end is summarized in an avatar that we were theorizing up until now. And they are, GameFi projects are actually planning full-scale ecosystems, social ecosystems, where all of the play to earn, learn to earn, own to earn are combined. And what I'm loving is to see that the token ecosystems are incentivizing the players to actually become more engaged, not just in the governance with the DAO structure, but also learning the mechanics of the game, and as well being able to use the game like an open source platform, developing just maybe new extensions or new features. And NFTs in the GameFi ecosystem are being used not just, like the Bored Apes, but they're also just not non-transferable. And they're being used as well as Access NFTs, for example, which turns out to be extremely good for marketing as well. So it used to be that the communities of gamers were a little bit against commercial practices, but with tokenomics, they're being engaged in that as well. So it's extremely exciting, and I think the GameFi world will actually lead the development of the metaverse and just Web3, and as well, I'm expecting to have more browsers like Opera, like Puma browser, where you just log in with your wallet credentials, and then you're logged in with your avatar on a whole set of different games and applications.
Awesome. And Ali, maybe from the lens and perspective of a VC, you've obviously invested across a broad amount of portfolio companies, and I know that there's been a specific focus and interest in GameFi. How do you think that the GameFi is going to lead to adoption in the digital economy? And how do you kind of break down the sectors you're looking at that are driving the innovation?
Yeah, it's a good question, Zach. So, in terms of the way that we're looking at it, and keep in mind we've been in this space for a while, right? So we started investing in GameFi and blockchain in 2018, and so when we started doing that, people would tell us why blockchain and gaming, it's weird, it doesn't make sense, and we went through that entire cycle where now everyone it's sort of very hyped up, and then also now it's started to come back down a little bit in some ways from a hype perspective. I think there's a lot of things to think through here and a lot of things that were mentioned. So one of the challenges that we have, so with these token economics and these incentives, is oftentimes what we're seeing is some of these games just aren't that fun, right? They're not great games, a lot of them, they're not that fun, and people are playing them for profit, right? And this creates a really big issue because these games just won't survive in the long run because they're not sustainable, right? So where we really need a fine balance is between getting all those incredible sort of factors that you have and those X factors that you have in Web 2 games around like stickiness, just a great game to play and that you want to go invest and spend your time on. Those factors need to be there in blockchain gaming. In the vast majority of cases, they're missing right now, right? And so that's something that's evolving and we're very optimistic on. Now, we do think that play to earn does create a different economic and shared economic model with users that actually creates economies of scale. And so we actually do believe that this is going to be as big of a movement, if not bigger, compared to how free to play came into the market, right? In gaming, we think that play to earn is going to have a similar movement over the next decade or two. Having said that, a lot of the games that you're currently seeing probably won't be around and probably won't survive, right? And so there is obviously a lot of risk around this. One other key thing to mention that we're seeing as an issue right now is we do think there's a big hype factor with gaming right now and with NFTs in general. And so what that means is, you might see certain games, let's take, I don't know, NBA Top Shot or Axie Infinity, where assets might cost $1,000 or $2,000 to start playing a game. Now, how many people in the world can afford $2,000 of disposable income on gaming? It's not a lot, right? And there's only a select number of countries where that, is more likely to be able to happen. Now, this becomes a big problem because that gap means that in emerging markets, you can't play these games, right? And so I'll give you an example. We were speaking with senior executives at a major sports league in the US, and they said their goals are to expand in Latin America and Asia. Now, if that's their goals, they need to make sure that these games are going to be very attainable and very accessible from people in those markets to engage and be involved. And that might mean instead of it costing $2,000 where your average player needs to pay to play or own assets, they might need to do it with $1 to $100 or even 10 cents to $100. And this changes the entire dynamic of everything we're talking about. And so a lot of the things right now in the market, in some ways, are probably not sustainable and really need to change in the way that they operate. And this probably means, things like rental markets for NFTs and gaming becoming more prevalent, right? So in one of our games, Splinterlands, we actually launched rental markets about a year ago, maybe a little longer now. And right now we do about 2.5 million daily rentals successfully, right? And that's now created a very interesting market for people being able to play these games for 1/100th of a cent or 1 cent a day. And then be able to earn off of those assets. So it creates very interesting dynamics, something to think about on how do we actually level the playing field and make these games accessible for everyone around the world, because it's very important from getting those factors right of engagement.
Fantastic. Thanks for the great description and example. So, you talk about the economy that's being built within Splinterlands, obviously from the rental market. And, I think that even for some of the listeners in attendance, they've probably seen a lot of the headlines around, from major banks or research reports citing that the metaverse economy can, exceed trillions of dollars of value. How big do you guys, maybe we can start and go in a circle. How big do you guys think these economies can really get? What do you think is going to drive a lot of that economic value? And then, after some of that opinion, I'd even love to hear how you think that, both tokens play a part and how do we bridge the gap between these isolated economies and the broader economy. But maybe let's start with Eloisa.
Yeah, so in terms of the size that I'm expecting, I'm not really sure about what estimate I have in mind, just because even with what I'm seeing among the clients that I have, I'm pretty confused. So there's those that have lots of capital that comes also from traditional finance, but they are limiting the token economics part very much. They're very much afraid of SEC. They're very much afraid of the legal side. Whereas there's startups that mostly even come from developing countries that Ali was referring to, and they are completely open to just anything, not afraid about any laws at all. So my issue here is trying to understand the two worlds, how they will come together. And that will determine the size. So it goes back again to the problem that Ali was referring to. And also with some real estate projects that I've looked at that you can use crypto to buy some houses or rent. I'm still not seeing real adoption there. So, rather than focusing on the estimate of the market, I would like to focus on, estimated regulatory framework to aid the process of the adoption. And I don't think that will come in the next year. not even in the next year or two. I think it will be a matter of this application. And for now, I'm also seeing that there are many projects that again may die off. GameFi is just an example. There's a lot of play to earn that is just like a mere copy of Axie Infinity. And just to give you an idea, I have some AAA game developers and publishers that are wanting to jump into blockchain and crypto, but they are taking no less than 1 year, 12 or 16 months to get a product out there and then see the fit. So yes, I will give it to Ali and Raj if they have precise estimates. But I don't feel like giving one right now. For sure, we're in the $1 trillion market, but yet it's not at a specific state.
Ali, would you like to comment further?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two parts, right? So one is outside of, say, the gaming industry and understanding really what blockchain has done, right? And I think there's a number of things. I'm just going to hone in on one specific thing, right? Is blockchains have created a solution to a massive problem in society, right? And oftentimes what's forgotten is this is now the first way in human history that we can solve multi-party trust issues effectively, right? And if we look at, say, the last recession, right? So we go back 2007, 2008, this was a problem in large part started by banks or financial institutions all across the business industry, right? And, there's been a lack of trust and a lack of transparency oftentimes with financial institutions, which are supposed to be something that, we can rely on. Now you fast forward to what's happening now in the world, and this current triggers that are happening are in large part caused by the governments, right? And the central banks, and from massive amounts of printing and overspending and stimulus. And so now there's starting to become, and there's always been a lot of skepticism in the crypto world and people that have joined this world on skepticism around governments. But now it's much broader than that because everybody is feeling it, right? And feeling what's going on. And there's starting to be a lot of widespread mistrust in government. And so you take both of those and you look at blockchain technology, and really what it's doing is it's solving multi-party trust issues without needing to rely on those specific parties, and without needing to rely on any party other than, say, things like smart contracts and transparency and accountability in that way. And so this is a very, very big innovation. And then you take what NFTs have done, and I think oftentimes this is forgotten, but what's really happening at the core is this is the first way in human history to track ownership in a digital world, right? And in what world do we think that we don't need to do that? Like, this is one of the core most important things that have happened in the last while, right? I mean, basically since the creation of the internet, because we're spending more and more time in a digital world. And if you look back, right, if we go back to, say, like countries that you wouldn't invest in their real estate, in large part you're going to say it's probably because either you can't trust their government or their ownership records are in shambles, and you don't know if like you would actually be holding that in the long run. Right. And so in the same way that when you buy a home in, say, a developed country, you trust that you're going to own that and there's records for that. And you have that trust in that. In the same way, we need to be able to trust what we own in a digital world. And 20 years from now, we're going to think it was crazy that we didn't think that this was one of the most important things that's been resolved. And so this is actually going to easily blow up into multi-trillion-dollar industry and more, and it'll keep going beyond that as economies grow. And so, you take even simple things like, digital fashion as an example, right? And people, if they're spending trillions of dollars, it's a multi-trillion-dollar economy, right? And if you're spending 10% of your time in a digital world, and that counts from anything from spending time on your phone to your computer and beyond. Over time, this is going to continue to increase, right? So everyone's got a different percentage of time they spend in a digital world. Maybe it's 50% now, but our kids and then their kids are going to continue to spend even more and more time in a digital world, right? And so the importance of these things and the differentiation, even on things like fashion, is going to continue to get consumed by digital fashion for differentiation, as an example, right? And same with all of these other sectors. When you go one by one and how they're going to be impacted in this digital first world. And so when you take that at the core, I mean, we're talking about trillions even fairly quickly, but it can easily start going into the tens of trillions as we go much further and the economies grow and you start factoring that in, right?
Yeah, totally agree. Definitely is a lot of those considerations at play right now. Raj, do you have any comments as well?
Yeah. So one thing that we have personally observed, right, is that especially we did analyze many of this industry data, right, whether it's 4 trillion, 12 trillion by JP Morgan Chase or the A16Z. There are a lot of articles in the web that defines the future scale of this blockchain / metaverse industry, right? And when we started looking at it, and what we found out that because of this crypto hype that happened maybe last year or so, people invested a lot of money in the entire digital space, whether it's Bored Apes or any of those NFTs. And people bought $69 million worth of art, right? One NFT is sold for 69 million, right? So those antique values or the hype or the bubble that happened in the metaverse or in general Web3, people are realizing that it's obviously busting right now, right? So one thing that people are looking at is that how can I transition from Web2 to Web3? And that's where we focus on, obviously, is to really take this multi-trillion-dollar industry that currently exists in the e-commerce space, whether it's your clothing line, whether it is your shoe line, whether it is your brand as an individual, and how can you create a bridge where you're connecting the Web3 and Web2. And that bridge is where we believe there's going to be potentially $1 trillion industry. So to what Ali said, if you're spending 10% of your time in the digital space and 90% of your time in the physical world, then there has to be a bridge where if you bought something in the digital space, then you can use that in the physical world. So that's where what we focus on is that obviously if you bought an item that is rare, NFT item of a clothing line, right, specially designed by Beverly Hills designers, then you can take that NFT clothing line and you can go to the store and you get special access to those limited quantities, right? That's one of the sports connections we have done. Similarly, the seats, it's sold out event, but because you are an NFT holder of this particular game, you have now access to the real world event, right? So then that transition bridge, to me, that bridge is a multi-trillion-dollar industry right away, and that's near term, right? That's not 2 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So that's why strategically we position ourselves into this bridge environment. We call it as multiverse, right? Where we take real world and then metaverse and bridge those two gaps by taking real world athletes, real world stadiums, real world games, basketball, football, soccer, and all those, and created a bridge in this our metaverse in this entire digital economy. And we feel that would be very similar to what again Ali said with Sprinkland, right? Where you own some items and NFT, but you has utility to it, and that utility is something you can rent it out, right? So it doesn't have to be you own $20,000 worth of items. You earn maybe $500 item, but you can make monetization over the next 5 years, 10 years into hundreds of thousands of dollars. So again, to answer your question, yeah, there are a lot of estimates, but to me, there has to be a bridge from your future Web3 digital economy to the current Web2, and I feel many startups should focus on that.
Agreed. And I really think that's where the bulk of the innovation and development is happening to get today, especially under the GA umbrella. We like to support companies And Raj, you're a great example of that really are bridging the gap and helping to assist the transition, specifically with the celebrity influencer category in your case. To both Ali and Raj's point, the digitization of the economy is happening extremely quickly. We're seeing the numbers you guys mentioned are in fact real. People spend about 50% of their time today in a digital environment, which means in front of a mobile device, smartphone, or IoT device, and those numbers are going up every day. We've obviously seen a massive push from the education sector for people to shift towards online learning. The digital commerce is exceeding tremendously. The time spent in games and interacting with sports and different layers that exist in a digital format is really large. So I'd like to maybe forecast forward here, and I don't think there's a wrong answer, but to talk a little bit about what the overall infrastructure looks like in this digital economy. I think it requires a little bit of imagination, but how, considering the fact that there's opportunity here for $1 trillion industry, how is an individual going to interact with that economy? How are they going to manage all of and I think Eloisa, from a token perspective, are these going to be segregated, individualized, like mechanisms? I think we lost her for a second, but is each project and small economy or utility going to have its own token? How does that look on a larger scale in terms of going between products, processes, services, and interacting with yourself as a person? How is that going to be built?
Yes, sir.
Eloisa,
I was having bad connection.
No problem. Did you catch that?
Yeah. So I can take, Zach, that question, especially startups, right? So what we focus on, and many of the companies are already doing that too, is interop, right? So the key thing would be interoperability between your digital presence, whether your wallet or whether your avatar, whether your ID, right? That has to be seamless for this entire ecosystem to grow as one community. So when you are creating your ID in one avatar, right? Your avatar needs to be almost like Ready Player One, go from one environment to another, right? And that interop is very critical for the ecosystem growth, ecosystem sustainability, and also the trust. Because the number one thing that needs to happen is the trust in this space. And to me, the interop, and we focus that extensively, especially in our startup, and we want to make sure that let's say you have Shaq's avatar can go from our platform LootMogul to, let's say, Top Shot to any other platform, right? So that has to be an interoperability, and that's one of the elements that I feel that's very critical. But in light of time, I'll also pass the baton to Eloisa to answer the question.
Oh, I can jump in, as Eloisa is sort of reconnecting. I think there's still quite a few challenges, but there's three main assets that essentially hold value, right? So there's your equity of companies, there's your tokens, right? And some of these are going to have token economies, some will not. And then there's going to be your NFTs, right? Or digital representations of items, things like that. And so there's different ways to get exposure to these things. If you're new into this space or trying to learn about this space, I mean, my recommendation is not to necessarily go spend a bunch of money or go follow like some hype train. Go create your own opinions, right? Go sign up to one or two of these games, spend $1, 10 cents, or whatever is sort of the minimum, and just try to learn about what's going on, right? And try to form your own opinion, see where you think it could go based on the technology, right? Read into a few different things that are out there. But I think that's probably the best way to form an opinion of what's going on, and where do you think there's sort of barriers or key things that aren't aren't in place right now, and do you think those could be solved in the future, right? And if so, then you can start to see where this technology could go. So yeah, that's sort of, I'd say, the main piece in terms of how to get exposure and how to look at this. But Eloisa, why don't you go ahead?
Can you hear me now? Check. Yes? Okay. So what I was trying to say is that I think for me, the most important thing is to wrap our minds around the concept of a digital of our own identity, and see avatars as our as our way of being in the metaverse, and then seeing all of the trying to understand all the different sides that there are to our identity, considering our username in a game as well. Help its core activity worker that is able to incorporate all of this decentralized application in a way that is seamless. And also what we're missing is a way to transfer value via crypto from a mobile app, and that is crucial to get developing countries on the train, and as well in a way that I don't have to go through an anxiety attack every time I'm transferring money over a certain amount. So I think that's extremely important. And as Ali was saying, of course, go out and do your own research. There's a lot of gurus out there that unfortunately big chunk turns out that was in the hands of a huge kinds of multi-level marketing company of losing probability. It's when we shift from one platform to the other, and the end goal here is that no one will know exactly what blockchain is, a little bit like the HTML standard, and everyone would just think about the applications. But identity to me is crucial, and it's something that no one is really tapped into.
We're
There's a lot
we're
of
you a little bit there, Eloisa.
there, but have taken gonna be we can do it. Doesn't extremely.
Sorry, Eloisa, we're just losing you a little bit on the connection front. So I don't have too much time left. I think we only really got to scratch the surface here in terms of, what the digital economy is. I think obviously we have a really well-rounded panel here from the perspective of the economic side and building the foundational layers associated with tokens and the project's needs to really interact and, be transferable and accessible in a digital economy. From the design and adoption perspective, from Raj, who's really building some incredible, applications, has built in the past and has always been on the cutting edge of game design. And, to the earlier points, GameFi is one category that I think is going to drive a very large percent of adoption here in the digital economy. But it does really span from everything, across what we're looking at, a lot of the different markets. And then Ali, who's helping to back, fuel and support founders really actively who are building in these categories. So, there's obviously been some really interesting points here. Maybe I'll leave it off with something that I think hopefully the audience can take away. So how can one best prepare for this shift? Where can they go to learn? And, Eloisa, where did you learn about, tokenomics expertise, for example? How can we all help, even as entrepreneurs and founders, to help educate the next generation and the current generation on what the digital economy means, what it's going to be, and to be prepared for this shift?
The web. So no books, no gurus, just the web, and reading, encountering different sources. Some may be even contradictory, but having, of course, a great foundational knowledge is needed, not more than what you would get from school or from university. So make sure not to forget all of the traditional knowledge before getting into the Web3 space, and then going on Medium, going on blogs, Vitalik Buterin's blog, reading the Bitcoin white paper and actually understanding the wording and the maths, and then just taking it from there. Also looking at a lot of bad cases, a lot of the bad lessons learned, and that will highlight the good parts to keep in mind.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and in light of time, I'll say it quickly. I generally go to many of the Founders Club, right? Especially if you look at even Blockchain Founders Fund, they have a lot of investments, and I try to read light papers, like to see what light papers are talking about industry future. And to your main question of future of digital economy, you want to see what people are looking at from a current lens perspective and what they're building. And to me, light paper is one of the best thing, whether it's from Founders Club, the Blockchain Founders Club, light papers that have been published openly, or you can obviously research on several different ecosystems. I'm sure with EB and with GDA, you may have published a lot of light papers. So to me, those white or light papers are the one way of learning more about the future space. And obviously, they're talking to your customer is obviously the current stage, but the future would be just reading a lot of light papers.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. I mean, one, events like this, very quickly you can get insights from a lot of great people from all around the world, very different experiences. I think it's important to also try to see the other side. I mean, oftentimes you either are in a circle of people that are very anti the space or people that are very pro the space, and oftentimes it gets missed in terms of objectivity. So I think trying to also understand the other points of view. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges in this space, right? I mean, many people are aware of the opaqueness of some of these CeFi platforms. I mean, we obviously had Chapter 11 filings now with Voyager and Celsius recently. Like, there is a lot of issues still that need to get resolved. And so it's important to be aware that this also can be extremely risky. But at the end of the day, I think go try stuff. Like, the fastest way you're going to learn on any of these is go try a few things, go learn it, use a few different platforms, try to make opinions for yourself on how things work, try transferring stuff, try moving things around, play around with it, try to break it if you can. At least it'll help you understand like where the space currently is, actually from an operational standpoint, and then, go from there.
Awesome. Well, just because of timing, I think I'll leave it off at that. Guys, thank you so much. Tally, thank you for hosting this, and the attendees for listening. Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Have a fantastic day. And maybe for the speakers, if you want to drop in the chat the way that they can get a hold of you, I think everyone would appreciate that. Feel free to do so. And take care, everyone.
Thank you, Zach.